Welcome to the No Side Effects podcast. This series of podcasts is based around the theme of isolation. This particular episode is about social anxiety, loneliness and isolation. Please listen to the following unimportant information. No side effects are not responsible for their own opinions. Please note that this podcast includes strong opinions, laughter, pretentious information, and swearing. If you are offended by the opinions, please focus on the swearing. Please note that some listeners may find Tom's Birmingham accent offensive.
This is No Side Effects Podcast 1, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which is based around the theme of isolation. Don't know how many of these we're going to do, whether we're going to have lots on the same theme or not, but this is where it starts.
It's worth an explore.
Yeah, and we've got a few things we're going to hopefully talk about relating to isolation in its different forms. And see where it goes. Just been reading some articles, haven't we? There's a George Monbiot one that I was reading, which is quite interesting. I've got it on here somewhere.
Yeah.
That I'll kind of put on when we release the podcast anyway, which is called The Age of Loneliness is Killing Us.
We're going to put these up as links, aren't we?
Yeah, we'll put these up as links as we go.
Go to the website.
Yeah. What's that website?
The website is www. 4 W's. www.nosideffects.wordpress.com.
That's the one. That's the one.
Go to it.
Yeah, it's good. It's got lots of stuff on it.
Probably goes far, so it's probably one of the best websites I've seen.
It is quite good, isn't it, Ailey?
Mm.
Yeah, we're not blowing anybody's trumpet there who designed it.
No Side Effects would like to apologise for Adrian. Unfortunately, there is insufficient time to apologise for him completely. In this instance, we would like to apologise for the wrong web address that Adrian has provided. Unfortunately, we are not able to provide the correct web address. This would require too much effort on our part, and not enough on yours.
So, loneliness.
Hmm.
Loneliness.
Where do we start?
Isolation.
Do you want me to leave the room? No, sorry.
If we talk about the George Monbiot article that we were looking at, what I find quite interesting about that is the application of humans as, a species, and its requirement to have a social aspect to its nature.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose there was no ecologists round when the first humans walked the earth, but I assume, from what we understand, that they were pack animals. They weren't, there might have been the odd one that no one liked, smelt bad, or was arrogant. They left him on his own. But I suppose for the vast majority of the time, they were social things, and here we are now, pretending to be social. But how social are we?
The article talks about isolation and how people are becoming detached from their kind of social groups.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that are causing that? Maybe we can reflect on our own lives to look at those. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that would be good. Like it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I suppose if we're talking about what's causing the loneliness, what's causing the isolation, just seems to be the way we have to live our lives as opposed to the way we'd prefer to, isn't it? I suppose. Does anybody really want to live and be alone? Some people say they do. Some people are told that it's kind of a good thing to be better than everybody else, live in the castle at the top of the hill, the mansion in this case, I suppose. I suppose that's an aspiration to quite a few people. I don't know how many these days, but at one point that was a big deal, wasn't it? You're going to be, the best. You're going to work from the bottom, climb the ladder, kick everybody else off the ladder on the way. Not very happy at the top now, are you? Because there's it's just you and the fucking ladder, isn't it?
Yeah. I think what we picked up on earlier, that probably a lot of it, again, we're going to sort of switching over to anxiety now, I think.
Yeah.
But that title we looked at there, which we thought would be a pretty good name for a song, the Income Happiness Paradox.
Mm-hmm. So what is that then? What is that?
So I'll try and grasp on it, but I'll confess that I haven't got my head around it completely. But ultimately, some people argue that what's the ultimate? What thing in life do you want the most? What is the ultimate thing that most people want in their lives? Some people might say a car, or a big house, or a good job, or a loving partner, but those things there are really means to something else. So I would argue that a lot of people, what they really want in life is to be at peace, to be happy. So what those people, when you buy a car, it's not that the car will bring you happiness, it's that you think the car will bring you happiness, but your goal is happiness. So the car, the house, the wife is all a kind of external things that you're trying to grasp in order to make yourself happy or well-being or at peace. But ultimately you want peace. So if you're constantly looking externally for things to make you happy, then they're always going to fail, because once you've got the car, that will satisfy you for a short period, but then you want to go on, there'll be something else that makes you unhappy, that gives you anxiety. There's like a perpetual thing. And we mentioned before that on that article it says that, I find it quite shocking, but 1% of the global population own 49% of the wealth around the world.
But they're not happy people.
But they're not happy people.
Yeah,
no.
They're probably the most miserable people around, really.
Yeah.
Might be happy from time to time when they're drug induced. But beyond that, probably not very happy at all.
So ultimately, I'm just.
So you think there's a connection between loneliness and happiness? I suppose that's the point. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think that loneliness is caused by a disparate amount of happiness in your life, or a lack of happiness in your life?
I think if you're trying to, if you say that my life will be better or happier if I had that job, what you're also saying then is, if I don't get that job, I'll be unhappy. So there'll be two opposites. So loneliness is, not quite sure where that's going.
No, I get what you're saying, because it's similar to we watched a video, didn't we? We had a discussion in our test video. What was that noise? Did you hear a beep?
Yeah, I did.
Who's beeping? Eh? We're lonely, we're the same two as
probably your camera switching off, something.
It's something like that. Well, they'll be happy. So I suppose it's touching on the YouTube video. Can you remember what that was? Where we were talking, we watched the thing about anxiety and the chap with his hand.
Yeah.
See if I'll try and find it.
Noah Elcreef, was it?
Is that who he is? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I hadn't really heard much of him, but
it was a similar concept, wasn't it? That he was trying to say that, by building a kind of positive requirement in your life, like happiness, you also then open yourself to negativity because you have.
Yeah.
It just, to me, sounds very boring without having either. It sounds grey, and that doesn't sound that exciting.
But how that relates to isolation and I'm not quite sure, and loneliness.
Well, if I would assume that loneliness is based around a requirement for social interaction, which you don't have.
Yeah.
And it might be that you never have had it, and you're just simply aware of its absence, or you had it once, or you've had it quite a few times, and you currently don't have it. And that's kind of where the loneliness then comes in, which I suppose is looking for, that's connected to happiness, isn't it? Because if you're then trying to find other ways of not feeling lonely, which is probably by pursuing happiness, which might be through alcohol, through drugs, through buying things, through getting the perfect job. But I suppose people still do these things when they have a big social network. I can't imagine they stop. So yeah, I'd assume in this instance it's something to do with avoid of social interaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or not enough experience of social interaction to fully understand that we all feel useless.
Yeah.
And we all feel stressed about what we said, and unless you're really, really great at managing your brain, which there isn't many people around, I don't think, who can do that. Yeah. And I suppose that's kind of then leads to anxiety, doesn't it? The concept of anxiety, because there must be a connection between isolation, loneliness, anxiety.
The social anxiety, of course, we've touched on.
Tom would like listeners to be aware that he is not responsible for his own opinions. His opinions are governed by unknown powers beyond his control. Adrian would also like to make listeners aware that he is not responsible for his own opinions. His opinions are the product of genetic inheritance, life experiences, media bias and relationships that have defined him as a human being.
And that seems to be something, at least in, of the people I know, it seems to be more of a thing these days than it used to be. I know we're all getting old, so I suppose we're all similar ages, but, there seem to be quite a few people that are anxious about social interaction. Not even in a very obviously social way, just simply being out with other human beings in an area, and that makes them anxious. Which is fascinating, because it makes you wonder why people are doing that. Because as I said to you before, I'd assumed that maybe drugs was part of the thing. Maybe cannabis is something that makes people a bit more paranoid and a bit more anxious, and maybe it's some kind of repercussion later on of that type of use, which is just struggle a bit with social anxiety. But I don't know. I can kind of relate to some of those feelings to an extent, but not to an extreme.
With social anxiety, which which is something that we've had to fight with in the past. It's obviously something to do with the ability of the individual to cope with interactions with people, probably through fear.
Yeah.
And that fear manifests itself in an array of you think of a variety of different outcomes that might transpire from a social interaction. And if that fear kind of grows, then you become less able then to get over that, getting over going out, and you kind of then withdraw from the world a lot, which maybe a depression causes you to do. And so you've got that fear of going out into the world, into social interactions, a fear of what people are going to do to you, what they're going to say about you, and then you withdraw, and then essentially then you become isolated and lonely, because it's a faulty way of thinking that has been indoctrinated within your life, within your brain as you grow up. And it's
So what are the things that go through an anxious person's mind? If you're out in public, what are the things that you actually think people are thinking about you? What is that?
Yeah. So the feelings you get from thinking about social interaction, it's fear, it's knotted in the stomach, it's you can get sweaty, there's physiological reactions, but ultimately what are you thinking is going to happen?
Yeah. What do you think they're actually thinking about? Do people think they're thinking about the person who's been anxious? Is it that they... Because I think I'd heard somebody that I know said to me not long ago that they think everybody's looking at them, or everybody's saying bad things about them.
Yeah.
Is that a commonality in these situations, that it's not that everybody's ignoring you, you actually think everybody's paying attention to you?
Yeah, exactly.
That's weird.
And also, and generally speaking, what as an individual, you're placing too much emphasis on what people think and say about you.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, you're going into a group, with your own baggage. So already you may have. Everyone has. Let's start from from the basics, I suppose. Everybody's got a self-image about themselves.
Yeah.
And if you're grown up and you've got the faulty way of looking at yourself, you haven't got a healthy kind of ego, I suppose, then already you're going into a social situation with some faulty thinking that is saying that I'm not worthy to be here. I'm not a worthy person. As if worth is a quantifiable thing in itself. But then when you go into that situation, you're always constantly looking for people and situations to reinforce what you think about yourself. So if you're going with a negative image, it could be a look, could be a word, could be a spoken word, and if you're looking for that, you automatically apply it to your own self-image. So if it's, and it's kind of like a world of distortion, if you like. It's you've got this negative opinions of yourself, and your whole view of the world is distorted, and even positive comments, they come through this filter, and the filter just filters it differently to what people intend. So you constantly got this kind of negative filtering that reinforces this story you say about yourself being worthless and things like that.
So this is potentially people giving too much of a shit about what they think others think of them. And that's
a root of it, yeah.
And then I suppose before you do anything, you've screwed up, because if you're already worried about what people think of you, then you go into these type of environments, and then you can analyse, like I know I analyse everything I say to everyone all the time. Spend many hours sitting there about different social interactions, different meetings, different discussions, and think, trying to rewrite them all. And I suppose, if you're unconfident about that situation in the first place, it must make it worse. But we're talking, like I do that a lot for like serious kind of meetings or debates and stuff like that, or serious discussions I've got to have. But when it comes to normal social interaction, don't think I do it, but then I do avoid certain types of social interaction, of course, which I don't want. So I suppose that might be how I get around it. Just avoid those type of social interactions, or get pissed and then deal with them. Yeah. But isn't that what everybody else does?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got that kind of, that comfort zone, and a social anxious person will have such a lower threshold, I suppose, to what most people have.
No side effects. Would like listeners to be aware that there is very little useful information provided in this podcast.
Withdrawing is, withdrawal avoidance is a tactic that an anxious person will use quite readily, and in its extreme form, you avoid any conflict or interaction with anybody, and you become bedridden. And you hear stories of people who are depressed who are bedridden for days. There's nothing physiologically wrong, but it's just the unbearable weight of having to greet the world. So
so that's kind of moving too far in the wrong direction, isn't it? Is that you've not only decided that you can't handle a social interaction or its social awkwardness, which every single one of them always is, but you've then decided that you're not even going to step out of your room. You're not even going to step out of this safe parameter in your life. But you can't exist there. No. There's nothing there, is there? So why on earth would anyone? Well, I suppose no one willingly wants to do it. No. But why on earth do they think that there's security in it when there's nothing but your own mind to torment you? Which is terrible.
And this is the paradox: is that it won't avoiding. So, like you're invited to a party, or a pub, or something like that, a meal with colleagues. It will cause you the ability, the fact that you can't overcome your fears, or whatever they are, in order to go out, and the fact that you stay away and avoid that will eat away.
So does the person want to go?
That wants to go,
but can't make themselves go.
Yeah.
I think I usually have the opposite.
Which is
I don't want to go, but I make myself go. I've got a model to build, I don't want to go. I've got a novel to write, I can't go.
Yeah. Which is a terrible, it's a terrible thing, really.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of that kind of inversion, isn't there, of like what you want to do and what you say you don't want to do. Yeah. But do people think that social interaction... Well, I don't know, you can only generalise in this, but I mean, like, in my experience, every bit of social interaction is never fluid. If it's fluid and you get bounce back and feedback, then you actually start to build more emotion in, not just friendships and things. You start to think, is there something much more interesting here? Because you can bounce and connect, Beyond that, like, every conversation is bloody awkward. Like, particularly if it's somebody that you just don't know, or you're just from different places in life or different experiences. Massively awkward discussions. Like, even just trying to get two scientists to have a discussion is impossible. They can't speak the same bloody words. So you kind of think... You'd
have thought that's unusual because they've got a similar language, scientific language.
Yeah, like if you've got, like, whatever, if you've got some kind of marine biologist and you've got somebody that looks at insects and they're trying to have a discussion. No, it's impossible. They literally can't use the right words, and then you end up having to mediate and kind of explain simple concepts in the middle. And that's kind of what I mean. Is that as far as my experience is concerned, it's just all social interactions just a mess. But that's kind of what's fun about it, isn't it? You can say the wrong thing. You don't want to offend people. That's not nice, but you're gonna, won't you? And someone's going to offend you, but you've got to find a place to put them. If you're repeatedly offended by the same person in an increasingly harsh way, they might not like you. I don't know, what else can you say? Like, if everybody was doing that all the time, that'd be horrible, wouldn't it? If, like, somebody was walking up to me every day, "You're fat, Tom," and I'd be like, "Thanks, I'm trying to lose weight," and then everyone I met said, "You're fat." You're never gonna get it. Then you would then want to retreat, wouldn't you? But surely that isn't actually what happens to an anxious person, is it? They don't actually have that interaction. They think they're going to get that reaction.
Yeah, that is it. It's you're talking the general kind of day-to-day things with someone with a good self-image, a healthy, not overconfidence, but a healthy confidence. They just won't see those types of those issues. It is really that the depressed or the depressive person or the anxious person has a thought process which is faulty. So they're constantly looking for things that will reinforce the story about themselves. So you might not say I'm fat. They might not say I'm fat, but you might talk about cake, and then the depressive, anxious person will think, "Oh, he's mentioning cake because
mention that like at least 3 times."
Yeah,
and he knows that he's only doing it because I'm fat.
Yeah, yeah. So
So
you're kind of reading into things. You're extracting kind of what you want. It's not a healthy.
I do stuff like that.
Yeah. But then you're reading too much. It's reading too much into it, and it's the key thing is that if you were to say I'm fat, with a healthy esteem, you could say that, and it's like a factual bit of information. It's like a healthy barrier around the person. So I could say I'm fat, and I'll say, yeah, I'm a little bit tubby, based on the average person.
Not really.
There's a scientific language there that you can deal with. But so if
there's a lot of fat socially anxiety. People with social anxiety now said that he knows me. Am I one of the people that's fatter than Aidan? Well, we can all get together and we can compare waist measurements. I'll take photos of you all start naked, and we can do some comparisons of waist and fat.
Send in your photos.
Yeah, feel free. I'll measure them, send them back. I'll try and proportionally set up the photos, and then we can do a proper scientific study.
a scientific assessment of your body.
Yeah, and then you can't hide. Then you know where you are.
Yeah. So
Send it to @fat.nosideffects.com. Sorry, carry on.
So so people are always saying things like fat, thin, whatever, bald. What other things have I had?
Weird.
I
get weird a lot. You're weird,
Dear.
you are. You're
Oh,
weird.
right.
You're weird. Doing a social anxiety podcast, You're weird. Yeah.
But the key thing is that whatever people say about that person with anxiety is that they will then extract that and apply it to their own self-worth. You know, they'll internalise it, and it then becomes a kind of reinforcement of their own story.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll already think that their body's ugly or whatever.
Mm.
So they'll take those words and they'll add them to that repertoire of pain that the anxious person has, rather than saying, "Yeah, okay, I'm fat," and just sort of shrugging it off as part.
So haven't they got to come to terms with themselves? Isn't that kind of the issue then? Is that if you keep looking for everybody else to tell you these things, you're not going to actually get it.
Yeah.
Even if you literally like pin them to a wall and said, I'm going to stick a knife in you if you don't tell me what I want to hear. Surprisingly enough, that's a biased opinion then. So don't you have to come to terms with yourself and actually just accept you are where you are?
Yeah, and I think you need to go beyond that, and this brings us on to the onto certainly my view of religion, is that there is a way out of it, and that is, like you say, understanding yourself, understanding your own mind, and actually working through the reasons why you think like that, which have been which are not your fault really, which have been soaked up as you develop as a child.
Yeah.
And you carry those on.
Social norms.
Yeah.
Which aren't normal at all.
No.
They're completely ridiculous, and no one actually lives by them.
No.
So we're all supposed to believe they are normal.
You know,
is it them you're on about?
Yeah, that's the one. And, we talk. Religious doctrination's the same. It's what is normal.
Yeah.
And the normal thought patterns for a depressive is they have a lot of negative opinions about themselves. They constantly tell that same negative story day after day, year after year. And at that point there, you've got to say, well, everything that I've learnt about myself is incorrect and faulty. It's no fault of my own. My life experiences have created this to this moment, and you have to pick them apart and analyse them.
Yeah.
But it is possible, but very hard, as you could imagine. But
interesting. Well, it's a shame, because it'd be good, if people didn't have to keep kind of retreating back to those negative thoughts, because there's plenty of things that are good.
Oh yeah.
It's just there's also a quite selfish aspect to this, of course, as well, isn't there? Is that it's not all about them. I know it sounds a bad thing to probably say to a depressive. Probably won't plan to say that anytime soon, but it is true that you have to still consider other people. I know, granted, in my own current discussions I've been having personally, it's something I need to do a bit less, but it is true that you have to accept that other people have lives. Your friends have lives, and it's not because they don't love you or anything. It's not that they're literally going to sit by your bed while you cry, every day. It's just not very practical to consider that's going to happen, is it? So you do have to at least accept some point in your own time that you have to deal with these things yourself. And I think, for my own, divorce proceeding that I'm going through at the moment, that's the same kind of thing, isn't it? Which was the blog thing that I sent you about.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my one, was just realising that my life partner is no longer there. However, my friends cannot physically fill that space.
Yeah, I thought that was quite a very poignant thing, actually, to bring up. No.
Yeah. So it's not actually possible, because they can't sit at the side of my bed all the time and listen to me go on.
Yeah.
Therefore, I have to do something else. And I think that's at least in my own experience, the most dangerous bit, which is the bit when your friends have left you, there isn't no one else around, and then you have to then face that empty space.
Yeah.
And then it depends what you put your mind to at that point. Are you going to put it to going, oh my god, my life is up? Or are you going to do something slightly more constructive and just take your mind away from that void and maybe pointlessly do a social anxiety podcast instead? Maybe that would be more sensible. Or write or paint something or anything. Maybe, you can watch the TV, I suppose, but you could have to be a bit careful there, because a lot of the same, negative. It is true, and you have to be somewhat cautious about what you do.
Yeah.
You could listen to a very depressing album. You could spend a lot of time listening to The Cure, something like that. You might get really down. You don't want to listen to Joy Division for hours, or maybe you do. But you still have to at least consider some of the things that you're trying to do and where you're trying to take your mind, don't you? Because you want it to go somewhere a bit more constructive and a bit more positive, and then you're okay.
Yeah.
But it's kind of practical things. Like if you're just craving attention all the time, it's not very sexy. No one's going to get turned on about that unless you're weird.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I think, with friends, if you're going through a difficult time, I think any friends that, like you say, there will be those moments that, you're going to have that space that was not filled before. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that I understand how you feel in those moments, but I think as a friend you can.
I think everybody does at some point.
Yeah. I think as a friend you can be available. For a phone call, just to, You just make it known, don't you, that you are there. But equally still, everybody can't always be there at the perfect time. No.
You received a phone call from me a while ago, and there was a 50-50 chance whether it was you or somebody else that was going to get it. Poor you got the phone call. But the fact being that in that particular instance for me, there could have been no one that picked up the phone. But I still have to deal with it irrelevant. It's not like, oh my god, no one picked up the phone, that's it, my life's over. Because it's not the case, is it? It's a moment in time where you feel emotional about something, and you have to put your mind somewhere stronger than where it is now. And it is all just emotion, isn't it? Like all of this stuff we're talking about is simply emotional response.
Yeah. And
emotional response can be very strange, because you can get quite excited about something really pointless. You can get really excited about a donut, can't you?
Yeah.
Oh, jam donut.
Often do.
Good for you. I quite like donuts. I like custard donuts. My tipple. But you could get, you have an emotional response about that. You can love somebody. I'm not trying to compare a custard donut to love for an individual, but to be honest though, I am. Because there isn't actually that much difference on an emotional level. It depends how much you really love donuts and how much you really love a person. Well, there probably are people in everyone's lives that they actually prefer the custard donut over the person.
Yeah.
Is that bad? Or should we feel guilt about that? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe we should. But it depends how much you like a donut. But the donut and the person aren't actually going to bring you happiness, are they?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there, really. I think because essentially what they both are external factors that you are looking towards to bring you ultimate peace, happiness, and joy. So they're two external things. Obviously, one is obviously embedded deep in emotions and years of love, and and your wife is on the other side. So you didn't get that, but so I mean, they are essentially. Are they? I mean, I'm saying this as if I'm, some bloody guru or something, but I'm just thinking this out as I go. But we talked about earlier about having things external that provide us, we think, with the route to sort of happiness. Yeah. But when you have those things, after you've eaten the donut, the donut doesn't bring you happiness. It just.
I need two normally.
Yeah. You need another one.
Yeah. One doesn't
whether you could extend that to people,
Yeah.
You know, are people, it seems a very selfless thing to say, that are people there to, you know, ultimately you're with someone who you hope through them you will be able to attain happiness, peace, maybe.
That's what I would have thought at one point, but at this current point in time, well, I think it is actually still the case, but you can't be too reliant on that.
No.
You have to have inner strength yourself, because you don't ever know when that's going to change. It can change for any given reason. I can happily contest to that.
Yeah.
Therefore, you do need to be strong yourself, and make sure that you know. But equally, just having a social nature helps a lot with these type of things. Like lots of different people you know, and being patient with them and not trying to put them into boxes. Can be fun to put people into boxes sometimes, but not maybe to their face. That can be offensive. Sounds like a horrible thing to say. But you know, it's good to be patient with people and to mix with different people, because then you actually start forming your own consensus on what normality is, which isn't normal at all. But you know, whatever, we're just talking about a sodding average. You know, like an average is always crap, but that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
And if you have that type of experience, you then at least have something to compare your own against. And that's actually been something quite fascinating about my current situation, is that if you compare it against other people's, it looks quite odd. But you know, but the emotional response varies. Like some people have a massive emotional response about something, and I'm not saying it's a competition, but it's not what it's about. It's more how does your emotional state react to external stimuli, you know? How do you cope, basically? It's a much easier way of saying it with two words. What, 2 words? How do you cope? That'd be 4, Tom. 4 words.
It's definitely 4.
Definitely 4 words, yeah. With a question mark at the end. How do you cope? And that's it really, is that how do you plan to cope with stressful situations or traumatic events, you know, or just normal events? Like, how do you cope with them? Like, I suppose one, it's not a normal event, is it? I suppose if you're out in public, that's actually a fairly stressful, traumatic event for some people with these type of issues, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, but then, you know, I can relate to things like walking through supermarkets with lots of people, and like I went to the Bullring a couple of days ago looking for that isolation box that we shared a thing on the website about. Yeah. The Macmillan Society one.
Yeah.
And you know, I went looking for that. Loads of people in there, and I just needed to get out. You know, I wasn't like, oh my God, yeah, but more, you know, it's just not where I want to be. Too many people. Temperature's horrible. I just don't want to be there. It's crap. So I left. It must be similar. Because we talked a bit, didn't we, about our own social interactions, that I know I'm happier on a one-to-one basis where we can go a bit further in discussion than a normal social interaction allows.
Yeah.
Not so keen on larger groups as such, but I don't avoid them. Well, no, I probably do, but I can talk and, you know, make jokes and things, but I walk away from those type of interactions and it never quite feels as good. But then it wouldn't, is it? Because if I'm kind of demanding a deeper discussion, then unless I'm going to stand and talk everybody to death, it's not going to happen, is it? So, what about yourself?
Yeah, I think I've always done better one-on-one with people, feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I do find, I used to find it quite difficult to, you know, try not to be snobby about it really, but you know, because as if you're a sort of on a higher plane, but you know,
it's just Swindon,
just the
it's just top of a hill in Swindon.
It's just kind of like the chit chat. You know, I've never been great at chit chat. You know, getting back from holiday and people ask you about, you know, how's your holiday been, and everyone, all the people's eyes are on you for some kind of great narrative and how well you've done, and I've never been that good at chit chat, you know. But on other occasions, you know, it's been fine.
Is that because in those situations we're not being honest? My holiday was shit.
Quite often I'm too honest about it. I don't think honest. I think
But is that part of the issue? Do you then feel that you're being too honest?
or maybe I
Should be less honest.
maybe I feel I can't be honest
Yeah.
because I'm expecting a weight of expectation on.
I do get concerned that if I talk about certain things, it's too negative.
Right.
So if somebody says, "How was your weekend?" I can only really focus on all the crap things about my weekend. So it's like, well, it was crap. And then you think, I don't really want to tell everybody every weekend was crap. But I suppose that's a slight connection, but I'm very rarely not honest about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually, you know, everybody else usually tells me that they had whatever weekend of fairly bland middle class activity that they were having. And I kind of nod and go, yeah, that's cool. And I go, what did you do? And I don't know. Just tell them what I did, and I don't know whether it's comparably the same. It's discussed differently.
Yeah. Maybe it's more a reflection on what I think my life or anyone's life should be. You know, it's a moment. It's a sort of long series of exciting moments.
Yeah.
To you know, to talk about. I mean,
like picking caterpillars off the windows. Doesn't sound that exciting, does it? But you can see the trails on the windows. Can you see them?
Oh yeah.
It's because they keep eating all the kale in them. Go on.
They're off looking for something else.
We're all getting eaten by spiders. Yeah. Yeah. As I say, does that sound like a life-affirming activity for a weekend, or in the middle of a divorce and picking caterpillars off the windows?
I mean, for me, I love those little moments, and you know, one of the greatest things really is like we call it pottering in the garden. You know, cutting back a few leaves.
Yeah,
and it's almost like a kind of meditation in a way.
It is. No, it is. That's the first thing I do, just watching the wind blow through the grass.
Yeah. But how can you just, you know, you've got a room full of, an office full of expectant faces turning around, you know, with relish.
Yeah, but do they really
hear about your weekend?
But do they really care anyway, or is it just a
so.
thing because they're all just doing it because they're all just following the same reaction? Aren't they? Just
it's just polite.
Aidy's about to say. But surely, imagine. I suppose put yourself in the perspective when somebody comes back from holiday. Do you actually give a shit about what they've done? Do you even care? You just you haven't been here for a week. You were somewhere else.
Notice.
Yeah, more than likely. Oh,
You've been away, have you?
Where did you go? I don't know where that is. I presume it was hot, and there was a coach at some point and an aeroplane. Did you do anything interesting to identify this memory in some important way? No? Oh well, just the coach and the plane then.
Brilliant.
So yes, I suppose maybe that's the problem, is it's just that maybe if we don't actually care what anybody else is saying, then does it really matter what we're saying?
I was just trying to reflect on that a bit.
Yeah. Do you actually care about when... Maybe there was a holiday you were jealous of that somebody went on. No, this is true, because I think somebody's just been on a holiday to Iceland.
Yeah.
At the place, not the supermarket, obviously.
Oh, really?
It'd be weird, but that'd be a fascinating holiday in itself.
Bag of peas.
Yeah. Chicken nuggets.
I'll tell you what, that bag of sweet corn was lovely.
It'd have to be like a tour of all Icelands, I think, to really justify being a holiday. Otherwise, it's a really crap holiday. But anyway, they've been to actual Iceland.
Yeah.
And when they came back, then I wanted to ask them, like, where did you go? And then I know I'm asking this question. I know I have no geographical concept of any of the localities in Iceland or anything really about the place other than I want to go.
Yeah.
But I'm still asking, and I want some information. Give me some damn information.
Yeah.
And I didn't really get that much interest in. Just it was good. It was like, I want to know more than that. Tell me now. So yeah, maybe it comes out if it's something more related to your own interests.
Yeah.
I went to Corfu, don't know where that is, don't care. I went to Canada. Where did you go to Canada? Where? When? Where did you go?
There are a list of destinations which pique the interest. And is that what you're saying?
Oh right, I thought you were telling me the one. No. I was like, wow, where is it? I want to see it. Well, yeah.
So if I said I went to like Ecuador for 2 weeks,
yeah,
You might say, oh, yeah, Aidy's onto a...
Yeah.
He's onto something there.
Not interested. It's too hot. Sounds hot.
Too far to travel.
Sounds hot. I'll burn. I need suntan lotion.
Or, you know, where else? I mean,
it's more just the fact that for your own interaction in your mind, you know, what you're connecting with other people. I'm talking more about a thing where it's something that you care about. Thus, you would then be interested because it's something internally that you would have liked to have done or you're interested in. Whereas if it's something that somebody's done that you would never do and you'd never have any interest in doing, then you'd probably just have a nil response. But you followed the social norm, which is, ooh, where did you go?
Oh, yeah.
Where did you go? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we, you know, well, I don't know whether we've got time on this podcast to go into that, but yeah, then we're talking about, well, what are holidays, you know? They're kind of a chance for us to get a break from our...
Yeah, that's a good point.
Our work.
Yeah, it's escapism, isn't it? Escapism from the isolation of your life in the first place. But don't most people, well, not most people, but aren't some holidays just a different type of isolation anyway?
Yeah. I've always said that I'd love to go on holiday, but unfortunately I've got to take my brain with me.
Yeah.
That's the way I've always seen it, you know. You can't leave your brain at home.
No, you can't, no, a bit tricky. But yeah, you know, like, I end up going on holiday to pretty isolated spaces.
You did a bit a lot of travelling, haven't you? And
yeah. Like, the last holiday I probably went on was to Withdrawal in Scotland. We just lived in a little Scottish cottage. Well, it would be Scottish, can't be anything else.
Yeah, French cottage in Scotland.
French cottage in Scotland.
It was a chateau, was it? In
No. That was the thing. They planted some kind of palm out the front. It's like, damn, how can that even survive up here?
Palm tree in Scotland.
Yeah, I'm stunned it was still there. But all I really got from the place, it's a nice place, but I just thought, jeez, it must be horrible trying to survive up here. Yeah, like about 2 inches of peat and some sheep and no trees.
Goodness me.
And but interesting as a life experience to actually understand a very minuscule amount of what it must be like to be in that type of environment. Purpley? There was no purple up there, mostly green.
Heather maybe?
Not that I remember.
Okay.
But, you know, but I don't know, like I'm probably the wrong person to identify with what holidays are about, because I do not do normal holidays. There you go, said it.
You said it.
Yeah, I don't really, you know, I hate going on coach journeys where people guide me sodding places. I get angry and I want to escape. I get angry if people try and confine me in an area and I have to escape that as well. Yeah. Yes. But these are the type of holidays that are popular. I can say that, can't I? They're popular holidays.
Yeah.
You know, going on package holidays to resorts and things. People do that type of thing. But I just see an artifice. I don't see anything genuine. So it's just isolation, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe it is. People seem happy.
Yeah. Happy because it's just enough time to be distracted from your own misery for a few weeks.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, it's very rare.
It's pretty depressing, isn't it?
Yeah. I often wonder, you know, who...
Come on holiday and get depressed somewhere else in a slightly different way to you do normally, and escape your normal depression and find a new exciting one that will have just manifested enough that when you go home you can forget about it. Yeah, that sounds pretty depressing.
Yeah.
But how do you combat these things? I suppose that's the more important thing, isn't it? Is how do we combat these negative emotions? How do we do that and actually become happier, less lonely? What do we do? Shall I read out that 7 lists of things how to do with loneliness that I found? Shall I do that?
Yep.
And then we can decide whether it's a load of bollocks or not.
I need to go to the loo.
Press stop, we'll carry on.
We'll be back in a moment, folks.
This is the end of our first podcast on social anxiety and loneliness. If we can be bothered to continue mixing and editing the remainder of this discussion, we might choose to make the next podcast available. No side effects. Apologize for wasting an hour of your day. But if we are honest, we don't really care.